No matter how sophisticated a distributor portal we make, but if ERP is very rigid, then the portal is also very rigid.
If the portal is running off the ERP and is wrong, essentially you're giving a live view into your data to your customers or users.
We often rely on the software so much, but again, it cannot manage all the human behavior.
Times things go wrong because people just haven't managed to or structure the data properly and stuff like that, but they blame the piece of software.
We don't want to wait 5 years and realize that we made a mistake. So we need to balance both the technical and non-technical aspect.
Welcome to another episode of the Disruptors. I'm happy to have Aashish back. Good to have you back, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good to be back.
Very good, very good.
Yeah.
Today I thought we'd jump into a bit around ERP data and why it's so important. Reason is this actually came from one of my discussions last week with a potential client and a business that we're chatting with. So when I sat down with them, they're looking at doing a portal and some other tools, etc. But they had some really good points around their ERP data and why it's they want to get that really, really solid, rock solid, clean, structured well, and I fully support them in that. I think it's an incredibly important part of, as we know, these kind of projects. And if we say it's the source of truth, it should be that. And so I guess I just wanted to touch off with you as to kind of why it's so important having that data and what recommendations, any ideas, etc. we can put out there for anyone listening that can implement some of these changes.
Okay, that's a very interesting topic because we have been working with a lot of clients. They are dealing with ERP, and again, once that is a source of truth, it should be clean, sanitized, because we are going to use data on different application. So before jumping into creating any application, for example, a portal, a front-end marketing website, we need to clean the ERP data. And if it's a legacy system with 30 to 40 years of data, then it's very hard. But again, as a company, if we plan, if we align our business and give us the chance like us, then we can understand the business, then structure the data properly so that we can disseminate it to the wider application. So yeah, it's very important because I have been working with a lot of clients who are dealing with different ERPs, and no matter how sophisticated a distributor portal we make, but if ERP is very rigid, then the portal is also very rigid.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely the ERP is super, super important. And I guess it's underestimated a little bit from my perspective is that people, like, there's a lot of businesses that, and even ourselves, we've learned this, but over time we've probably underestimated how important not the ERP is, because we always know that's important, but the data, like how much of a big job and how important it is. And especially if the portal's running off it, or your website's running off it, or you're running operations software, any of these kind of tools or applications, whatever you want to put it, if that's running off the ERP and is wrong, or it's dirty, or it's not well structured, essentially you're giving a live stream, a live view into your data to your customers or users, even if it's internal users. And so it's just incredibly important. And I guess it's one of those things over time that businesses just, I don't know, it just happens, if you know what I mean, where data becomes worse. It's not as good as it used to be. And it's just a maintenance thing that often gets neglected. But we'd strongly encourage businesses to focus on making sure that data is well structured. Some key areas, I think, are relationships. So that could be between contacts or customers. It could be, between child and parent customers, or child and parent items or SKUs. Any of those kind of things. Relationships are so important. We've often seen really poor implementations, where these relationships aren't structured very well. Another one's pricing, how pricing is handled in the ERP, and then how it's maintained. When you start, automating, I guess is the way to put it, you find a lot of the flaws, because if the data's wrong at a foundational level, then it's going to be wrong when it's automated. And businesses often, I guess, it's covered up because they work on a lot of workarounds, but then when you go to automate it, it's not. You can't hide that, I guess, is the point. And so a lot of it comes to the surface. What else would you say? We've touched off on, I guess, pricing and those relationships, but what else?
Mhm. I think the other most important would be duplicate data. So for example, NetSuite allows multiple customer to have same email address that will be duplicate. But again, if we are using those emails to create account on the portal, then it should be unique. So in our couple of projects, we faced this issue because that was not clear out earlier. But when we created the application that require one-to-one relationship with the email and the account, but while fetching the data from NetSuite, multiple accounts were associated with a single email, so it created a huge problem. Also, the other thing that client often do is, like you said, they create a workaround because they have already a legacy data and they do not want to change it because it's again expensive work and it requires a lot of resources. So what they try to do is, let's create a workaround for this, for that. Then again, after 2 years, if you want to add a new feature on the portal, then again you have to go down the same hill. So it's better we clean those up as early as possible, because later on, it's again when the size increases, it will again create problem to you ultimately.
Yeah. And I guess the bigger the database, the bigger the data, the more work it's going to be. And like the earlier you fix it, the better. And I think one of the key things that came up in my discussions was a governance framework and setting those boundaries and restricting access. Even one of the things, one of the questions I've often got is like, how much access should we give to the sales team, or how much access should we give here? And you often find that, in a lot of businesses that everyone just has either near full admin or super admin or just like, and then honestly, they do a quote, for example, and then they go and change the description because they want it a little bit different on the quote, but then they don't realize that they don't think about the knock-on effect that has to the rest of, the best of the business, about the website, about all of this other stuff. And so it's just one of the key ones again here I want to raise is the idea of least privilege in regards to users that have got access. Provide the least privileges you can in order for that person to do their role. There's no point providing the opposite where it's like, let's give them the most privileges in case they need it. That is how you run into issues where there's unauthorized changes or things happening. And I guess if you've got 25 people that have got the ability and are making changes to, let's just say SKUs or the pricing, then of course you're going to run into issues. No one's going to know what's happening, where it's happening, when it's happening, and why. And so to me, it's just super, super important that governance framework and that idea of there's a central point of control for that data in the ERP. And it all links to stock. It links to even processes of the business, right? Because if we're bringing in live inventory or live lead times and stuff like that, that even may be in the ERP. But if you take, let's just say, 2 weeks to receive your stock in to the ERP and enter that data in there, then the flow-on effect means that the data that's live at the moment is actually 2 weeks old.
Yeah, that's a good point. The role-based access is the most important one, because like you said, if we are giving a full access to all the teams from all the department, then it gives the system a sense that you can do anything, and one does one thing, one does another thing, and 2 years down the line you have all messed up data. But again, what most of the company think is, if we have a sophisticated ERP, then that will work. But again, that is the tech side, the software side. But again, like you said, we need a governance framework on how to run the ERP, because it's not for a day or two, it's for whole business for the lifelong. So there should be an entity who governs it, who creates the process. Okay, these are the roles that will be provided to this department. You can do this, the data type are this. So it should have a governance framework. But again, at the same time, the portal should be flexible. So for example, for a super admin, it should be flexible, that they can add new data type or again edit something, but again it should be limited to certain user, so that it's again flexible for the company so that when the business grows, they can evolve the ERP. But again, it is restricting other users to make the changes that are not authorized. So, yep. So these are the non-technical aspect that you also need to think about when you are creating a ERP or a distributor portal, because we often rely on the software so much, but again, it cannot manage all the human behavior. So we need to balance the both the technical and non-technical aspect.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. And I absolutely agree with it. And I think people like get a bit confused as well, which is not necessarily their fault, but they don't know, like, do we put it in the ERP? Do we implement a PIM? Do we have another system? And I think, again, there's no silver bullet here. There's no exact solution for every single business, because as we know well and truly that every single business is different and the requirements are different. But in general, I guess, we've implemented PIMs. We've also done stuff in the ERP, etc. If you can, and I'm always a fan of this, if we can consolidate systems in regards to, the product data, etc., it's better for us to do that. But in saying that, there is some, situations where, external systems may be needed for, like, managing the assets and that kind of thing, which we've done a range of approaches to that as well. But I guess, have you got any comments on that? Because in some instances there are, like, some people make the argument that, putting all of this extra stuff in the ERP is just going to complicate the ERP. It's going to make that clunky, make it slow, and we don't want to do that. So we'd rather have that external. I can see that point of view, and I don't necessarily totally disagree with it. And what we're saying here is not to go and load 2 gigabyte videos into your ERP and stuff like that. That's not what we're talking about, but more, your text-based data, your more foundational product data, etc. But just wanted to touch off on the kind of PIM side, and that there is, I guess, a time and place for that as well, but it does depend on the business.
Here, because every piece of software or the application have its own objective, right? So you cannot consolidate all the feature into one thing, because it's again going to be complicated and it's not designed to serve it. Like when writing a function, you need to serve only one piece of action that the function should do. So like similarly, the application also should be, for example, it's ERP, then it should hold companies valuable data that are non-negotiable, for example pricing, the customer details, and everything else. But for when it comes to product asset, the specification or the things that they require to send to the wider applications, like the job descriptions or sort description, anything, it's better if we segregate it. Because again, if we are trying to disseminate this information from a single source, then there will be APIs hitting to that ERP, and again it may introduce security concern as well. So if you are trying to expand to the wider application, it's better you divide it. So yes, your ERP would be your source of truth. Again, that ERP would be connected to PIM, that is product information management system. So what it does is it fetches the SKU from the ERP and all the assets, the description, the anything that are related to that product that can be stored on that application, and will provide a specific user to that application, and that can disseminate it, so that we are not giving direct access to ERP. But again, it depends on how business work. If they do not want to give the information to wider audience, and there are certain admins that are going to update these resources, then why complicate it with multiple applications? We can use one. But again, like you said, there is no one solution for all the problems. So it depends. But again, you need to know exactly what that application's objective is, and if it's fulfilling that without creating any hurdle, then yeah, definitely we can consider it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, it does, not to, I guess, provide confusing information, but it does depend on the business's requirements as to whether or not we implement that. But I guess foundationally, if I guess the simple way to look at it is, if it can be in the ERP and it makes sense, put it in the ERP, right?
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it means it's a consolidated system. It means you're not trying to manage multiple systems, and it means that not only that, you can have it in your quoting, you can have it in the ERP for all the different things and functions that are going on there. It's not just about when we're doing the API and stuff, right? So if it can be in there, then we have it in there. If it's going to cause issues and it's not, it's large files, it's a lot of assets, it's more of a I guess, what do we put it, a storage thing like that there, then yeah, we wouldn't recommend putting that in the ERP, obviously. There's other solutions out there for that. I guess just going back a bit as well, I want to touch off on the human aspect of just inside the businesses themselves, because we've had these conversations with businesses before and even said, hey, your ERP data needs to be clean, it needs to be set up. And they're like, yeah, no worries, we'll sort it out. And we're like, no, it's a big job. Like you need to sort this out, and it's going to be something that's going to say, yeah, fine, we'll sort it out. Not a problem. Then they've realized, I think, that they've severely underestimated the amount of work that it actually takes in order to do that. And I guess the time and effort that's required in it. And it really is hard, because you need someone that is, to a degree, somewhat inside the business and knowledgeable about the business itself, in order for that to, because it's really an indexing of, I guess, of the company knowledge to a degree, without overcomplicating it. But if you've got any comments on that, I guess it's just about a word of warning, or making sure that teams are prepared, and don't try and cut corners with it, because you cut corners with it and you'll feel it in the end, whether it's in the portal or whatever else. But again, the whole point of it is, if you've got the information indexed, or you've got the information right, set up correctly, then we can automate based on that, right? We can be confident that it's correct. If it's not, then your automations are going to consistently have issues.
Yeah. But to touch base on the human aspect, so when you start using an application, so you tend to get comfortable with it. So even though it's very hard, complicated, or it's creating problem, if you give a year, you start using it, then you become comfortable. And when the comfort evolves, for example, 5 year, 10 year down the line, then the company are very, it's very easy for the business or the people running the business to operate this ERP. We do it like this, so we don't want to touch it. I think that is also another human aspect that we need to consider, because yes, being comfortable is good, but again, with what you are being comfortable, if it's not creating an asset for you for the long run, like you said, the knowledge base, then it's again creating a problem for you. It will not create a problem right now because you are comfortable in that position, but again, the tech industry is growing, you want your distributor portal, marketing website, the application, there are a lot of things. So when you try to bring everything together, then you see, oh, we messed up because we have been using the system for 50 years, we have been comfortable what's wrong, and now we cannot change it, or it will take a lot of time and resource to change it. So I think with one of our clients that I've been closely working with it, they have a legacy ERP. So they have set of things, and also they are used by multiple companies. So whenever we say, okay, let's add this, then no, this is already in the place, we are comfortable with using this, you need to create a workaround. So yes, for the time being, we change the logic on our back end. Or what happens if we create a new application, same problem. So the comfort that people are in ERP, I'm talking about the companies that are working for 50, 60 years. So these are the companies who are a little bit resistant to change because they are comfortable. The business is growing like that. And there will be a couple of old guys who are using the ERP and all the information are on their head. So if they retire, or if we do not have a proper succession planning, then again, it's going to create a problem. So there's a balance, the human and the technical side. So yeah, I think that's the another aspect that we need to look after if we are planning to run ERP for the long time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another way to put that there is it's the cost of change. It's the cost of, the risk even of getting it wrong. We know how, to be honest, like every ERP implementation has challenges, and some go better than others, but most of them have challenges even for the most well-planned ones. And we know that through experience of just, working with businesses that have gone through that process. But I guess a lot of, which is understandable for the business if they're working, if it's doing okay and helping growth, and it's that risk, it's that fear of that change and disruption to the business that they, with the actual system itself, which I can understand. But at some point, there's going to come a time where you're going to evolve, especially from that legacy ERP. And if we're building, if it's kind of the backbone of the business and our systems, and we're building our other systems off it, then yes, that legacy thing, as you said, comes in and holds you back. And I think another thing, Ritesh, kind of the way he puts it is, a lot of ERPs feel like they're held together with duct tape. And there's been so much custom work done. There's been so many different people come in over the years and add all of this different stuff. Again, principle comes back to there's no governance, right? So someone comes in, adds a new custom field because they want to add a new custom field, big whoop. So suddenly that custom field is now 3 years later, half the data's in one custom field, half the data's in another custom field. Like, what I mean is just it becomes this never-ending cycle of trying to manage the structure and the data, because there hasn't been from day one a consistent entity or person or whatever you want to put it as responsible for governing that and managing that particular part of the ERP. And when it's the backbone of the other systems, it's a backbone of, but even saying it's a backbone of your ERP automations and all of that kind of stuff. Well, when it's wrong, yeah, you're gonna run into those issues, and it's a significant issue for the business.
Yeah. Interestingly, yesterday I was working on NetSuite to our application mapping for one of our new project, and for a data model customer, there were tons of custom field. So custom field 1, custom field 2 without any description. So yes, they might have created a long time back to cater to some requirement, but now if that person has left and there's no proper documentation, then we are not sure what custom field 2 is going to store, what its data type, whether it's required or not. So again, these are the small frictions that are going to be created in the long run. So yes, again, like we discussed earlier, yes, it should be flexible for the company to add in new custom fields, custom tables, but again, there should be governance like naming convention about, like you said, the relationship. So yep, it was interesting. Yesterday I worked on it and I saw a lot of custom field. And also when the business grows, they again change the ERP, API. And if you see 5 years down the line, then you have more custom fields than the original fields.
Yeah, well, unless they get it right. Sometimes they get it right and, they implement it right. And I guess a key part of this as well is that, to a degree, within reason, software these days in regards to ERPs and stuff, they all do similar things. Yes, there's different particular features, there's different skills that or like enhancements, features within certain softwares, don't get me wrong, and they're not all just identical, but the general principle of them, they all kind of have the exact same stuff. But so many times things go wrong because people just haven't managed to or structure the data properly and stuff like that, but they blame the piece of software. And this isn't just for ERPs. I've seen this with CRMs. I've seen it with everything, where the software isn't a silver bullet. It's not a piece of magic, right? As in it's a framework, and you use that framework however you use it, how well you use it, how well you don't use it, kind of thing. And that's just something for people to understand, that it's just not any piece of software. This goes for anything in the business. It's not a magic piece of software. And I guess one kind of way to think about this simply, for anyone listening that has this in their business, is imagine you're trying to create a self-service portal, or you're opening up, whether it's internally for an operations piece of software or externally for a self-service portal, whatever. You've got to think in systems, in processes, and you imagine that, okay, let's say a customer comes in to the business and is wanting to place an order, and they sit down at your computer and actually go through your ERP and enter the data and enter their order. Now, obviously, that wouldn't be the greatest user experience for them to do that. But the point I'm making here is all of the information there? Is it well structured to where they had all the information accurately, where they could very easily and consistently and reliably, I guess, go through and enter that information and process that order? Now, when you think of a self-service tool, all you're doing is making the user experience better, right? Because we all know ERP's user experience typically are pretty trash, right? That's just, they're a glorified database with functions on top. So we essentially are making that user experience better. So you take the same principle with that self-service portal and you're like, okay, what information do they need to know in real time without any human, reliably, consistently? And then what actions should they be able to take reliably, consistently, easily? And that pushes information back into the ERP. It's a systems, it's a processes thing, right? For example, if your stock levels are always inconsistent, right, whether that's through integration or through you not entering data in the ERP properly or whatever else, the customer cannot rely on the stock levels. So something is wrong, right? So this is the point I'm trying to make. You've got to think in the processes, in the systems of like going, okay, what do we need to do to remove that friction? What do we need to do to enable that self-service? And you'll find that 80% of it will come back to the data in the ERP.
Agree. Yeah. The another example that I want to place is it might be a small piece of information, but again, with every data that is you are storing on the ERP, so if you have a updated date field on there, then it would be very easy for the portal to fetch the updated one, because I have seen a lot of ERP that do not store the created and updated date. So whenever we want to do an increment sync, we don't know from where we fetch it. We don't know it's updated now or it's updated 5 years back. So these are the small or the nuances that are missing from the ERP data that is not helping the customer to get the real time information. Like, for example, you update the stock, but again, your ERP doesn't store the updated date information. Then, how does your portal know if it's updated today or yesterday? So, yep, these are the nuances that needs to be taken care, like from the data angle. So, you might think that this information is not required, but again, the more data you collect, the better information you have, and you can do better analysis, and your customer portal would have more user friendly experience for your distributor or any other user.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree. And I think just probably layering on top a bit about what we discussed regarding the governance stuff and the control or the privileges, etc., within the ERP is have a champion, have an owner of the data. It doesn't mean that individual person does every single, if you're a very large business, then obviously you're going to have other team members and stuff like that. But someone should ultimately be responsible for that data, whether it's a master data person or someone, a database individual, etc., whatever it is. The roles look different in different businesses, but at the end of the day, someone that's over that data, kind of overseeing the governance of it, overseeing the management of it, and making sure that it's a continual improvement thing. It's not just let's clean it up once and forget about it, but it's just someone that is responsible and managing that on an ongoing basis. It doesn't have to be, depending on the size of business, it doesn't have to be a full-time thing. It could be a part-time thing, especially if you put a lot of frameworks and systems and processes in place. Obviously, it becomes a lot easier because it kind of self-manages. But again, there's someone ultimately responsible for, okay, what are we doing here and what are we trying to achieve? And if you do that and you get that data right, the rest of the systems that we're essentially just layering functionality on, we're layering presentation layers, we're layering UIs on top of the ERP to extend functionality. And that extended functionality is obviously what we call your edge factor, but it's what makes the business unique in regards to you've got this ERP data. And then how do we now layer on self-service tools and internal tools and things like that there to push and pull to supercharge the business's efficiency, basically?
Yeah, the role, the permission are very important. Like you said, there should be an internal champion who looks after the data, the quality of it, and sanitize it. Yes, again, depending on the business, there can be an internal champion that is working full time. But again, if it's a small size, then they can again hire consultant 6 months down the line, check whether all the information or the data collected are correct, sanitize it, and then move forward. We don't want to wait 5 years and realize that we made a mistake. It's better we realize it in 6 months and do a check and balance and then update it if required.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think it's been a really good discussion. It would be really insightful for a lot of people listening, just in regards to how they need to structure that ERP data and stuff. And we could go on for quite a long time about this and specific stories with businesses, but it does get a bit nuanced when you start talking to individual businesses and things like that with the position they're in. But hopefully what we've shared today is giving them some good insights. So I appreciate you coming on. And you got anything else to add before we finish up?
Yeah. So we are not trying to say all the ERP on the market are wrong, or you need to structure in this way. Like we said, it depends on the business. But again, if your company is not capable of doing that, then you should hire a consultant who understands your business and then implement the ERP, structure it properly so that it will be beneficial for you in the long run. We are not saying that you cannot add this, but you can obviously do a lot of things in the ERP, but it should be again structured. The data should make some convert to information. Again, if you are inputting a garbage, you'll get the garbage out. So that's the basic principle. So yes, there is no one-stop solution for all the problems, but again, it's a customized thing. So you need to understand the business, you need to understand what business is catering, what are the distributors that are associated with the business, and based on that, we can obviously customize it and create a governance framework and then help you excel in the market.
Yeah, very good. Well, thanks, Aashish. Appreciate it, and thanks everyone for listening. If you want to check out, there's more episodes here on the Disruptors YouTube channel or any other, Spotify, etc. You can get all the episodes, and then as well as you can check out Pulse, our other podcast on YouTube and Spotify, etc., as well as our learning center on intuji.com. But appreciate you listening, and if you got any feedback, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, mate. See you next time.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on this episode of The Disruptors. If you are serious about unlocking your ace factor, the thing that sets your business apart and helps it grow sustainably, don't forget to follow, share, and leave a quick review. We will be back next week with more real-world insights and no-flop conversations on how to rethink your systems, modernize operations, and build value that lasts. Until then, stay sharp, stay focused, and keep disrupting.